Welcome to Brainworms and Tangents. My name is Pamela.
And I'm Carissa.
And we are two 20-somethings with ADHD on a quest to chase our impulsive ideas we can't shake. This is a self-growth podcast that is all about becoming who you want to be, one brainworm at a time.
So, I hear you have a brainworm.
I do have a brainworm.
Since this is episode 1, I think we have to go and define what a brainworm is before we dive into everything.
Right, because I think it's this word I kind of made up. Well, it's a word that exists, but I don't think people really use it the way that I use it.
Yeah. What is your definition of a brainworm?
So, to me, a brainworm is one of those ideas that you just can't shake. It's like having a little worm in my brain that is just whispering and is like, hey, you should really do this thing, and it would change your life if you did. And I feel like that's kind of common with ADHD, to get these brainworms. Would you say that you get brainworms?
All the time. I think especially with ADHD, it's one of those things that you really either go 0 or 100 into.
It's these persistent obsessions or these hyperfixations that we just have to do. You know, waking up at 2 a.m. and being like, I have to reorganize my bedroom right now.
Yeah.
And like, that's like a brainworm to me, is like, I can't sleep until I see this thing through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, what would you say your brainworm is today? Why are we here?
So, we are here because I woke up one day with the brainworm of creating a podcast. And naturally, I couldn't shake this idea. So I called you, Carissa. Do you remember what your reaction was when I called you?
The thing is, for those listening, I think all the time Pam calls me with things, and always my reaction is, what is it this time? What are we doing? What's it? And I always get roped in, whether I want to or not, but for the best. So I think a podcast is something that I don't think was out of reach. So it was just bound to happen that was going to be one of your brainworms. And now we're here, which is great.
And now we're here. And that's kind of the whole premise of this podcast, right? Is how can we work together to follow these brainworms that we have and share it with other people. And I think that is so important for ADHD, is friendship and community, because that's how we make things happen, is, you know, like body doubling, for example. Mm-hmm. That's something Carissa and I do a lot.
Yeah. I think there's all of like pre-diagnosed ADHD, there are a lot of things that I think gravitating towards. Body doubling is one of them. So whether that's having someone come over and just sit there as I clean my whole apartment, or FaceTiming you and doing my dishes, which is, you know, not the most appealing thing to do, but things get done with friends and community.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about how we naturally kind of do a lot of challenges together, and how it would be really fun to make it a podcast.
Yeah. Was there anything specifically going on that was like, podcast, this is what I need to do?
Well, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and again, going back to ADHD, I feel like podcasts are really fun for habit stacking, where I'm listening to a podcast while I'm cleaning or while I'm doing dishes or folding laundry. And I think I've always just wanted to be a content creator. I can think back to even being in middle school and starting my YouTube channel that was like so bad and so awkward, but I had a lot of fun doing that. Mm-hmm. And I just got really excited about the idea of taking on a project and just working really hard towards my goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's a lot of access to just being able to start something. I don't know, it's safer than when we were middle schoolers with digital cameras recording and trying to upload to YouTube. Now that we're adults, I think we know more about internet safety and can successfully do this.
We have more resources now being adults. Like I kind of know it looks good. I did not back then.
Well, let's talk more about the podcast. So, when you had this brain, when you called me, you kind of pitched this idea and this vision. Um, so, what is this going to look like? What is this podcast journey?
This podcast is about working with your ADHD instead of against it. Like following the dopamine in order to grow as a person instead of following perfectly planned routines. And, I feel like you see a lot of advice geared towards neurotypical people that are just, it's not going to work for an ADHD brain. And I think this is a kind of way of gamifying self-growth and making it fun, but also having a built-in community, which, like we said, is so important for people in general, but I think is really great if you have ADHD.
When you were telling other people about the idea for the podcast, a lot of the reactions were kind of similar to mine in the essence that I think most people thought you were already on this path of creation in other forms. I think this is just another step. Um, but there was one that sticks out to me of other people's reactions. Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
About how you and I FaceTime all the time anyways, so we might as well just record it. And I think that totally shapes what this podcast is. It's just like an inside look into a FaceTime call with you and me, just going through whatever, again, our brainworm of the day, the week, whatever it is.
I totally agree. I mean, we're already following the brainworms. It's silly. We have like, oh, today we're going to do a declutter challenge. Today we're doing Apple close your rings challenge. It's, just deciding that, yes, we are going to do this. We're going to take action. And I think we're also both really into self-growth and learning about self-growth. And that shapes a lot of our brainworms because it's just the idea of how can I become the person that I really want to be.
And I think with ADHD, a lot of it isn't always going to look like what, like you said, the neurotypical person is. Because if I told someone, oh yeah, I have to drink a gallon of water today for this silly challenge I'm doing, I enjoy that every day I wake up not really knowing what my day is going to look like with ADHD. And I also don't know when you're going to call me and have your next great idea. So it keeps you on your toes. And I think the accountability that comes with this is something you and I are doing together that we are posting out into the world. And I think it is a fun way also for us to stay connected. But like you said, do these little challenges to better ourselves, to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and find different systems for ADHD.
Yeah, I agree. Now, we've talked a lot about what our podcast is, but let's talk about what this podcast isn't, because there's a couple stipulations that I think are really important to keep in mind as we go about this. What it isn't is not accumulating hobbies for the ADHD graveyard. And do you know what I mean when I say ADHD graveyard?
Yes, I have drawers that is the ADHD graveyard full of paint supplies that I never opened because I thought I was going to become a painter, random weights for my fitness journey. So I get it. ADHD graveyard is very real, but hopefully we don't want to just go out and buy the next trendy thing to do this life-changing trend that is going to fall off eventually. I think that's not what the goal is.
Yeah. I think the goal of this podcast is not about using things to feed our impulses. It's about doing. It's about action. And, we don't want to feed capitalism. We're not selling any solutions. What the point of this podcast is saying, if you want to change your life, you just have to do it. Mm-hmm. And you have to do it in simple ways, and you have to start today.
Yeah, I think the action piece is the classic, like, executive dysfunction of ADHD. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to just get up and do something with things you already have around you or things that you don't even need. Declutter challenge is something we'll talk about later in the podcast, but like that is the exact opposite of just getting rid of things or starting a podcast. All you need is, a microphone and a friend. um, we don't want to add things. We just do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. And I feel like we had to kind of hold ourselves accountable to that as we were planning out this podcast, where, all the advice is saying, here are all these mics that you could potentially buy for your podcast. And clearly, we are not putting any investment into this yet. We're starting with the action of let's record an episode and see where that takes us. So we've got, old school wired headphones to start us off.
And I have the brightest lamp behind me, making sure it's not dark in here.
Yeah, I have all the lights on, and hopefully that's enough. And it probably isn't, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I think there's the idea, like you said, just doing it. I think perfectionism is a big thing with ADHD. And if we wait for like the perfect moment or the expensive piece of podcasting equipment, we're never going to start it. And that's something that we talked about a lot when we were in the brainstorming rabbit hole phase of what's a podcast? How do we do a podcast? And I was like, I think we just need to hit record and see what happens. And we'll just see where it goes from there.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what this is going to be in a couple months.
I agree. I think there's so many ideas already that we have of things that we've done before, things we want to do. It'll just be very fun. So I think one of the things we wanted to talk about too is as we move forward in the podcast, knowing that we're going to be doing different challenges and things together and holding each other accountable. There's always going to be different constraints, but also we want to make sure we're reflecting after we do certain things. So I don't know, I just want to ask you questions about what you want in a month from now. I don't know, what is your main goal for yourself with the podcast?
I think my biggest goal is to at least continue. I keep seeing the statistic that is most podcasts do not continue past, I think it's like 8 or 12 episodes. There's like some mixed numbers on that. So I at least want to see this through 12 episodes or more, maybe double, maybe set my goal higher than that. Because this is all about really setting your sights on a goal and seeing it through.
Yeah, that's the whole mission. I think the other like the thing with ADHD, we don't want the podcast to just go in a drawer and we never look at it ever again. So I think despite, we both have full-time jobs, we both have things outside of this, but dedicating time to do it, I think is what's going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah. As like the person who has decided to join me on this journey, I'm really excited to have you as my co-host. I could not think of anyone better to do this with. But what are you hoping to get out of it?
I think finding things that work, whether that is like different, we talked about routines earlier. I don't think, again, habits and routines are tricky things, but I think you said finding systems, finding ways that actually motivate me. And I think the podcast in itself will become a big motivator for that self-growth that we talked about. I think we're about to go into a new year, 2026, and I think there's a lot of just growth that I want to do. So I think this will be a perfect avenue for that. I'm excited to share it with you as well. Is there anything else you want everyone to know about the podcast, what's to come?
I think our listeners can look forward to seeing a wide range of brainworms. So we call it self-growth, but I think that looks really different for everyone. And we file a lot of things under that category, just to, the thinking about a holistic self. There's a lot of things that goes into that. So you really won't know what our next brainworm is going to be. We don't even know what our next brainworm is going to be. And I think that's the really exciting part of that. And this is probably going to be our most structured episode. I think from here on out is going to be a lot more tangents.
More tangents.
If this is a podcast that interests you, please stick around. There are so many brainworms to be explored. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Brainworms and Tangents to stay connected so you won't miss our next episode. Please share with a friend who you might follow your brainworms with.